There's an old joke, something about, hello, I'm from the tax man, give me all your money and I'll tell you how much you can have back. It's something along those lines. But Warren Ingram, co-founder and director, personal financial advisor, certified financial planner at Galileo Capital, is with us this evening. And it's tax season. It's like my second favorite time of the year, Warren Ingram, after Christmas, is tax season, because it's the time we get to tell SARS how much we've earned. They then check how much we've earned. They see whether or not we're allowed any deductions. And if we're lucky enough, we get a little bit of a refund. And then we feel very pleased that we lent them money interest-free for a period of time. And we begin the process all over again. But yeah, it is tax season. And it's an increasingly fluid, automated, and hopefully accurate and efficient tax season. What's your assessment of it?
I think it's a mixed bag. So whatever we say tonight, someone's going to be very excited with what we said, and someone's going to be very unhappy. But I think just to understand the automation part about this, why it's good as a principle is, we don't have millions of people working at SARS with enough accounting and tax knowledge as it is. So we've got a skills shortage. That's no surprise to anybody. And it's particularly severe at a place like SARS, where, they're competing against the big audit firms and just business in general, who are all looking for accounting and tax skills. So the, private sector just generally pays more. And so finding ways to automate tax returns, I think, is a very good idea. If you're cynical, it also is a way to reduce corruption, because now there's not some official there who can be bribed to make your tax look better or worse. It's a machine, pre-formatted forms, and you either fit in or, you go around the exceptions. So I think in principle, the assessment is good. Certainly chatting to the tax practitioners who went through the process last year, they obviously complained bitterly. But then, when you talk to them a bit more and you probe a bit more, you get some sort of grudging acknowledgement that actually the process is not too bad. I think what happens is for someone who just, earns one salary from one company, has their PAYE deducted from their salary, and does nothing else, just normal stuff, they can go through this auto assessment fairly painlessly, and they need to absolutely make sure that they've checked the auto assessment and check that the details are right. But for most people in that instance, the process works. Where I'm picking up issues is when there is a mistake, and no doubt there are mistakes being made, then it's extremely difficult and enormously frustrating to actually talk to a warm body on the other side of a line or an email at SARS. And it seems like that your sort of first line of defense from SARS, the quality of feedback there is not great at all. So I think mixed bag, Bruce, but let's not be cynical about the process. I think what Edward Kiesvet is doing, I think, is a really good idea. And every year it's going to get better. I'll be surprised if it's not a major improvement this year over last year.
So have you been auto-assessed? How's that process gone for you? Give us a call this evening on 021 446 0567, 021 446 0567, or you can drop us a WhatsApp this evening if you've been auto-assessed. Good, bad, indifferent. What's your sense of it? And if you are somebody who does this on an annual basis, are you finding that the process is becoming better, more efficient, more effective, more accurate? 072 702 1702 if you'd like to drop us a WhatsApp this evening. Just explain to me how it works, Warren.
So you'll be sitting at home minding your own business, and somewhere around now you'll be getting, and I'm not saying now, in a day, but in the very near future, you're going to get an SMS or an email from SARS to say you've been auto-assessed. What that means is that they've received all the information that they believe they need from your employer, because your employer is obliged to submit a certain documentation to SARS, which is now all electronic, of course, which details how much income they've paid you every month, how much they've deducted as tax, and any other benefits that you've received. So all of that goes to SARS. Your medical aid scheme will have gone reported to SARS as well to say how much you've paid in medical aids. If you've got a decent administrator of your retirement funds or your retirement annuities, they should also be submitting the correct information to SARS. If you're retired and have a living annuity, for example, the same process applies. And then let's not forget our beloved banks who would do the same. They'll be submitting to SARS the balances in your bank accounts, how much interest you've earned over the tax year, et cetera, et cetera. So all of this information gets fed through to SARS on an automated basis. SARS then, basically has an algorithm that goes through what should be deducted from your income as tax. If that ties up with the tax that's actually been paid, then you get this assessment to say, all done. And it could be an assessment to say, all done, we owe you some money. And then, as you say, the party starts, or, you owe us some money because, not enough tax was paid through the year. But that's the kind of general principle of the process. What then happens is you've got a fairly limited amount of time. According to SARS website, to the 23rd of October is the time that you've got to submit your returns. But you've got very, very little time. I think it's only 40 days, if I'm not mistaken, to submit a complaint if you don't agree with the auto assessment. And I think that's the trick with this whole thing, is you cannot rely on what's been done, because it might not be a mistake by SARS. You might find, I've had this experience.
That's the point. Absolutely. It could be just one of the service providers, your service provider hasn't done its job properly. Yeah.
I've had this nightmare in the past where I've trusted the retirement annuity fund provider to submit the correct information, and then I get a very nasty shock from SARS saying you owe us a lot of money. You've made no RA contributions over the last year, and being a diligent financial planner, I knew I did, and so that becomes an absolute nightmare. So you have to check that information. All of that tax documentation that gets sent to SARS directly should also be sent to you. So you should have all the interest tax certificates from your bank, your medical aid scheme, and your retirement fund contributions, all of those things. So it's very important that you check, because you can't rely on anybody in this process to get it right 100%. Having said that, if it does tally, then you can let the auto assessment carry on, and you'll be fine. And I think, just on the principle there, Bruce, I mean, we shouldn't really, and I know it got like that in the past, where, someone just earning a normal salary was paying a tax person to do their taxes because it was getting so complicated. And that's just wrong. I think if we're generic taxpayers, we shouldn't be filling out forms and going through a whole process. This stuff should be automated and done without having to pay someone in between just to double check everything. That's for me the very definition of inefficiency. So I think that the process is working a bit. However, where you earn income from a few sources, let's say you earn rent and you earn some side hustle work where you do something on the weekend. So you've got your main job and your side hustle job, and all of these things are sources of taxable income. There is a very good chance that will not necessarily be assessed correctly, and especially I think it's a weak point with SARS around travel allowances with cars. So if you get a travel allowance from work, they're weak at that. So you need to check those things very, very carefully.
And this is important, Warren, because ultimately the responsibility is on you. If you fail to pick up that SARS has made a mistake and you don't get the refund that you were due, they're not going to pick it up, and you're going to disappear, and that money is going to sort of fritter away into some government department somewhere and be utilized for whatever purpose. If you owe them, if SARS deems you to owe them money and you do not object and you do not submit the supporting documentation that they require, they're going to push ahead with demanding from you a payment because you haven't objected within the 40 days or whatever the case might be, and you haven't supplied the correct documentation. And they do have an extraordinary amount of power over you if you fail to stand up for yourself. And so standing up for yourself at a time like this is what is pivotal, right?
Exactly right, and I think we've had this in the past on the show where you kind of make a donation to a government school And SARS turns around and goes, that's not a registered charity, which is just ridiculous. So you absolutely have to be very quick and, very eagle-eyed on this stuff. They don't like donations. So make sure that those donations are in and that you've done your work correctly. And I think one point that you made there, which I should have emphasized early, is you have to make sure you've got all the documentation yourself. If you object to something, SARS can ask for it. It's called an audit, and no one likes that, but you need to make sure you've got every single piece of documentation that proves how much you've earned. You don't make up deductions thinking that SARS will never check. SARS is very good at kind of finding odd patterns in taxpayer behavior. So if you can't prove things, then you really are in trouble. And you definitely don't want to be caught with submitting yourself to tax evasion. That's not a legal right to evade tax. You're allowed to avoid tax. That's legal, but you may not evade tax. That's completely illegal, and then you're in deep trouble. So make sure you've got all the documentation. Don't go scrambling after you've got a question from SARS now.
It defeats the purpose, and this is what irritates me about the inefficiency of a system like this, where somebody doesn't do their job, and you end up having to do the job for them anyway. So I'm going to be auto-assessed, so I get an auto-assessment, and I need to have all of the stuff in reserve just in case the auto-assessment is wrong. I'm going to wait until I get the auto-assessment. If I've got a problem with it, then I'm going to go and get the backup docs. Or should I be filing away paper copies of these backup documents and keeping a 5-year record of these documents anyway, regardless of the auto-assessment? Warren, how paranoid should we be?
No, it's not paranoid. It's good practice. I think you should keep the records for at least 5 years and just understand, they can come back 3 years later and say, just explain to us, what happened here, because they're also looking at patterns. We need to understand, we're on this grey list for a reason. And part of that is we've got some dodgy people in our country. Surprise, surprise. And they've been doing their level best not to pay tax. So, it is part of a whole, sort of tax collection process as well, where, if you suddenly, earning 100,000 in 1 year, then it's, $1 million the next year and 4 million the next, SARS might well say to you, hang on, we want to understand, the year where you were only earning 100,000, you need to explain it to us now. It doesn't make sense. Okay. So you should keep records. Fortunately, filing these things electronically nowadays is not that difficult. I find, it's difficult, to get that information a year later. So during the year, it's always good practice to do it. It's much easier to find. I can never get bank statements from our bank once it's kind of gone past 12 months. When you're looking for the March statement in March the following year, that's hard.
Okay. Got you. Zelma in Cape Town, a quick question, a quick comment for Warren. Good evening, Zelma. Earth to Zelma. There you are.
Hi.
There you are. We're connected.
Yes. I'm here. I unfortunately missed some part of the conversation, but I am part of the people that's actually been auto-assessed now and paid, and there's quite a lot of us that this has happened to. My gripe with this is that in terms of what I understood and what the website said is that when you're auto-assessed, if you agree, you do not do anything and you will be paid. However, the tax season hasn't officially opened yet. Tax season opens for us to do anything to our assessments only on the 8th. On the 7th at 8 p.m. Now, the fact that SARS has auto-assessed us and paid, there are two issues with this. The first one is that SARS clearly states that you need to check your auto-assessment because if they've made a mistake, you are still liable. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I've not had an opportunity to accept this, and they've paid me. I have various things that I need to claim for and put in there. So this is the gripe I have.
Thank you, Zelma. I think it's a really interesting point, because I think SARS is doing this, Warren, going, we ought to assess you, we give you your money back immediately, and we think, well, that's a wonderful service. Geez, usually it takes months to get your money back from SARS. Well, in Zelma's case, she's going, hold on a second, don't pay me back my money. I haven't given you everything I need to give you yet. Now, I'm assuming that Zelma can still object. Just because she's being paid a proportion of money doesn't mean she can't now submit the documents for additional money, right?
Exactly right. I mean, I think that's that's the whole thing, is that you've got the time to do it, but you haven't got too much time. So I mean, I don't want to get onto the side of defending SARS here. There are some problems. I mean, they shouldn't be just paying the money out before it even opened on tax season. And I saw some tax practitioners going crazy on Twitter today about this. But the truth is, you've got the time, and you have the right to object. And we do have a tax ombud if it really goes south and no one's listening to you. Obviously, you don't want to go all that way down that road, but just make sure you've got the documentation. Then challenge it and submit the correct documentation and see what happens. You might be in a position where you get an additional refund.
Yeah, I mean, but it shouldn't work like that. There should be a better process. There should perhaps be a compulsory acceptance, and it would encourage people to actually become more connected with their tax affairs rather than simply waiting for the auto assessment. It just happens, and you stop paying attention. I would like to see a system where actually you have to accept within a certain period of time that this is correct, and then there should be an immediate response on that particular point. So I think Zelma's got a point here, and I would like a revision on that. Would that be an unreasonable revision? Would that add complexity to the process, Warren?
Well, just on the other side of that is, if it's true that SARS does owe you some money, and they might owe you more, but let's say they owe you, just for argument's sake, 60,000 rand, but they don't know everything about you, so they believe they owe you 40 and they pay you 40. You made the comment at the start of the show around, that we've lent them that money interest free. So what I appreciate about something like this is I'm getting that money back as fast as they possibly can. And if there's an additional amount that's not too painful to go and get, I'll take that. I mean, I've struggled to get refunds from SARS for 9 to 24 months sometimes. So the fact that they're doing it very quickly, I'll take at least a portion of that money back, and I'll smile and then, submit forms for the rest.
Yeah, I mean, often I found that form filling in is a process that you just have to go through, and it's a pain, but they've got an administrative requirement on that side. Give them what they want. They need to be clear on what they want. Give them what they want, and the money flows. It does. Let's move on. If we're done with automating tax returns. Thelma, thank you very much for your question. Margaret has sent us a question this evening, and as interest rates look like then they keep going up. So that certainly was the message that the market sent us today. It's a message Lesitya Khanyago has sent us in various ways over the last couple of weeks as well, that South African interest rates are likely to keep rising for a little while. Margaret says, I'm looking at interest rates on the RSA retail savings bonds. An interest rate of 9.5% per year for 2 years seems compelling. The 5-year interest rate is 11%, which is on the same stock market but without risk. Shouldn't I invest my money in those? Good question, Margaret.
It is a good question, and it becomes, when we talk about a return from a government bond, which is as close as one can get to a guaranteed return of 11% a year over 5 years. Let's not quibble about whether it's exactly the same return as the stock market. It's very close. If the market gives you 12% or 13% or 10, it's there or thereabouts. The major differences are that the one is guaranteed by government, and over a 5-year period, we remain reasonably hopeful that government will pay its debts for 5 years, so it should honor that 11% a year. So that's, let's just use the word. I hate using it usually, but in this instance, probably true that it's a guaranteed return of 11%. Whereas the market might give you 10% a year for the next 5 years, it might give you 15, or it might give you -3. We simply don't know. We have a belief and we can look at probabilities in history. So when you're getting this close between interest and stock market returns, it really is worth looking at and considering carefully. So the one thing is around the guaranteed return of interest versus, and I would use interest from government on the RSA retail bond. It's a very specific thing because you're not taking bank risk or some kind of small little financial institution. This is the South African government. So I would say that's the one guarantee I would rely on. But the other thing about this interest is that it is fully taxable. So that's the trick with someone in Margaret's position is if Margaret is investing an amount which will generate 11% and that 11% is below any kind of tax thresholds where she doesn't have to pay income tax on the interest that she's earned, then that's a very compelling rate of interest to take. And I would bank it and move on with a smile, because, 11% a year tax-free guaranteed is great. However, for most people, the interest will actually make them pay tax. And if you're paying away, let's say, a third of this, and it could be a third up to 45% of your 11%, that's a different ballgame. So suddenly it's not 11%, it's, 7 point something, or, it's 6 point something if you're at the 45%. And that's not so exciting anymore. So I think the answer is allocating some money to these RSA retail bonds and banking a very nice guaranteed rate of return makes sense to me. Would I take all my money and put it in there? No. Firstly, because of the tax. Secondly, because of the diversification. We got pretty close to a kind of financial cliff not too long ago as a country, and I don't think you want to ever put all your eggs in one basket. So that's the second point. And then the third is the tax kind of generous treatment around shares makes it quite compelling still to be in shares, but maybe all around the world, not just in one place. So no, Margaret, please don't put all your money in there, but certainly to allocate some, and you need to do your calculations to make sure you're not paying tax on that interest, but up to the point where it's tax-free makes a lot of sense to me. I think it's a very nice place to kind of get a return of anything from 9.5 to 11 is compelling.
Thank you, Warren Ingram. Warren is Executive Director at Galileo Capital, Certified Financial Planner and Financial Advisor. All of those things.